something. I mean, this is really science fiction. This didn't exist. I mean, laptops, you know, back in the 60s when Star Trek first came on. I think I'm going to call it lap acting. They have lap dancing, why not lap acting? So we are going to continue. I mean, this is not the end. And another interesting thing, I mean, you know, Star Trek fans that discovered the show way back then are now in positions of making important decisions. And one of them happens to be a man named J.J. Abrams. Some of you may recognize that name. He directed Mission Impossible 3, which did very well at the box office, and he's got a lot of box office muscle. And so he went to Paramount, despite the fact that they publicly announced that they're not doing any more Star Trek. He said, I want to do Star Trek. I want to direct the Star Trek movie, and he pitched the idea to Paramount. Well, you know, Paramount knows that he can make money. I mean, that's, you know, they said that they thought that Star Trek can't make money. Well, J.J. Abrams disabused them of that idea. And so they said, all right, yes, if you're going to direct it, we'll let you do it. So there's going to be another Star Trek feature film coming out. And he is currently working with writers to develop a story which sounds intriguing. It's us before we got together on the Enterprise, Starfleet Academy. And so, of course, we'll all be younger. And I tried to convince them that I can be made up to look younger.
Of course.
But it seems they're toying with the idea of getting young actors who resemble us. And the buzz that I've heard is that Mark Damon may be your new James Tiberius Kirk. So we shall see. It's going to be interesting. So, what? What did I say? Oh, yeah, I meant Matt Damon. A little slip of the tongue. Well, Matt Damon is, and that's why you didn't react to that. Keep your eyes on me. I do have a tendency to say something that I didn't mean to say. So you'll keep me on the straight and narrow. Anyway, yes, you got to indulge me a little bit. So, you know, I really think that we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Star Trek in another decade. The year 2016. Can you imagine?
Bring it on.
But I muse on, you know, what has happened in the 40 years. You know, Star Trek was seen as a pure science fiction show. I mean, idealistic, you know, not connected to the realities, but at the core there was this strong vision that Gene Roddenberry had. But Gene also tried to connect it to the realities of that time and draw that contrast. Because the reality of the 1960s was America was in turmoil. You know, here was this show that had us all on this spaceship. And he said that the spaceship, the Starship Enterprise, was a metaphor for Starship Earth. And the strength of this starship was in its diversity, coming together and working in concert. And so you saw that visibly on the starship. The visibility of race and ethnicity. You saw an African woman, an Asian man. You saw a pointy-eared alien creature who was half human, you know, miscegenation happening. But we all were there working together as a team. But there's another kind of diversity that you can't see. And those are political beliefs, religious faiths, sexual orientation. And the political diversity was suggested by Gene Roddenberry by having a trusted member of the leadership team who was proud of his Russian heritage and spoke with a Russian accent. Now let's look at the reality of the 1960s. We, in the United States, in the mid-60s, Many of our great cities were exploding in race rioting. Inability of people to work together and to recognize equality, the need for equality for people. And the civil rights movement was going on. Politically, the Vietnam War was tearing this country apart. The issue of a war that half the country didn't believe in and the other half supported passionately. There was cultural turmoil, a cultural revolution literally going on. The hippie movement, their style of dress, their music, their art, which was revolutionary. And the older generation thought American culture was gone now with this next generation. All of this turmoil happening. And overlaying all was the Cold War. The two great powers, the Soviet Union and the United States, glaring at each other, threatening each other with mutual nuclear annihilation. That was the reality back then. On the Enterprise, you saw not only racial diversity and political diversity, but also amazing technology of the future. We looked into this thing that we call the console, and we got information from it, and we sent information out on that, from that console. Amazing. Well, we recognize that today as our computer. We're going to be webcasting entertainment on that. It's reality today. We walked all over the Enterprise with this amazing sci-fi device on our hips that we flipped open and talked to people with no lines. Amazing. That amazing device today has become a very real nuisance in our society.
Especially in movie theaters. Especially in movie theaters.
And movies, I agree with you. And I can tell you a story about what happened to me in a movie theater with the cell phones. And technologically, we actually have in space today a spacecraft that we call the International Space Station. And the crew of that is made up of people from all over this planet. From Asia, from Africa, from the Middle East, from the United States, and most amazing of all, we have Americans and Russians working side by side together. Mortal enemies only a few decades back, working together in concert up there in space. 40 years. And what was amazing science fiction, political fiction, social fiction, cultural fiction is reality today. It is true. These wild dreams, and idealistic dreams of a man named Gene Roddenberry or any visionary can become reality. And the one reality that I devoutly pray for is the early invention of that amazing device that we called the transporter. Wouldn't it be great? I mean, instead of driving forever to the airport and then having to go through airport security and luggage check and the anxiety of maybe they're losing your luggage, to just, step on a platform and let energy waves go through you. You sparkle and you beam over. A few seconds later, you sparkle and reappear. Wouldn't that be a wonderful way to travel? Maybe by the 50th anniversary, I'll come to Atlanta, by transporter. But it can happen. It can happen. Well, is the wildest dream. Because I remember my grandmother telling me when she came to this country from Japan in like 1890 something or other, she said, that boat trip across the Pacific took 6 weeks of being rocked in this boat. And she said if anyone told her that she could get on a metal machine and go over the Hollywood Hills, she would have said they were crazy. Well, in her lifetime, she made that crossing over the Pacific many, many times. My grandmother lived to 105.